Welcome to the Indians in Germany podcast, where we explore the experiences and stories of Indians living in Germany. Hi, I'm Manish Kumar, and I'm excited to bring you this podcast that celebrates the vibrant and diverse community of Indians living in Germany. In this podcast, we take a deep dive into the fascinating story of Sneha Brinkman, a multicultural individual with a wealth of experience in the tech and business world. Originally born in Kolkata, India, Sneha spent her formative years in New Delhi and Dubai, where she completed high school. She holds a master's degree in computer science from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, as well as an MBA from the prestigious Chicago Booth School of Management. After living and working in the US for a decade, Sneha decided to take a leap of faith and move to Germany with her German husband, Benjamin. Currently residing in the picturesque village of Fölsen Willebadessen in NRW, Sneha works remotely as a product marketing manager for an American company, alongside running her side business of helping people find jobs. With her unique perspective of life in Germany, Sneha shares insights on her experiences living in the country for the past 4 years. So, Sneha, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for that great introduction. I'm so happy that you invited here, and I hope that some of what I say is valuable to the listeners. So, and also great initiatives, by the way, really great.
Thank
And
you,
I'm sure that
Sneha.
Indians learn a lot from these podcasts, from a variety of individuals from different backgrounds. So, love it being here.
Amazing, amazing. So, Sneha, we will just have a deep dive to your, to your fascinating life. So, first of all, to start with, just tell us about your background and how you ended up in Germany.
I ended up in Germany by flight. It was Lufthansa.
Amazing.
Well, I'm married to a German. So to answer your question, really, in short, yeah, I have a German husband, and there was always a plan to move to Germany at some point in time. But to go a little bit further back in time, yes, I'm an Indian. Now I hold a German citizenship. So, well, I'm one of Indian background. I was born in Calcutta, as you correctly said. Spent a few years in New Delhi, and my father, who was globe trotting, and he was traveling all over the world, taking up assignments and initiatives. Coincidentally, his first assignment abroad outside of India happened to be Germany. So he was here in the 80s. That was very interesting phenomena. And now his daughter is he's no longer around. He passed away in 2019. But now I'm settled here, so that's a bit of a coincidence. So my father was taking up all these initiatives all over the world, and he finally found a project and assignment in Dubai. And he spent a few years there, after which he said, why don't all of you move to, why don't I move the entire family to Dubai? And that's how I ended up in Dubai, where I completed my high school, 10th grade, 12th grade. We do have a CBSE education in Dubai. So I did go through all the, grind of learning for CBSE board exams. Then I went back to India to do my undergrad. Again in New Delhi. I spent my 4 years there, and then I decided I was fed up with the hot weather, both extreme temperatures in New Delhi as well as Dubai. I didn't want to go back to Dubai where my parents lived. I didn't want to live in New Delhi, because it's so hot. It would get really hot in May. So I was like, okay, where do we go? Let's go to America. And I was very young at that time, 19 years old, when I decided I would move to America. So didn't give much of a thought, just wrote my GRE exams. And ended up finding a spot at New Jersey Institute of Technology. And then, I arrived in the US. It was a bit of a learning curve, as it is to move in any new country. So it was the first time when I was on my own. And I arrived in New Jersey. I studied there for 2 years. I slogged through a very different kind of program, and adapted to the culture pretty quickly, I would say. And then I, graduated and I started working in information technology as an IT engineer, particularly in the IT VMware sort of space. So then, I decided like, okay, I'm fed up of doing IT. I didn't want to any longer do IT. And I was living in Chicago and working for a very prestigious university, University of Chicago. So Chicago Booth School of Business, the reputed institution, was right around the corner, and I would go there to have lunch all the time. So I thought, okay, why don't I mean, people also around me were trying to, push me, and they were trying to tell me like, why don't you apply to the university, just see what happens if you apply. And I'm like, why should I give this blow to my huge ego already? I'm going to get rejected. So, but anyway, after years and years of deliberating, I thought, I would apply to Chicago Booth, mustered up some courage. I applied, and by some miracle, I got in. I
Wow.
got in. So while
That's not
having
easy.
this,
For the audience, I
yeah,
must say that it's very competitive. Yeah.
with a very low sort of acceptance rate. I don't quite remember what it is, 6% or something like that.
Exactly.
So I got in by some miracle. So I was working full time and also studying. Luckily, those happened to be my workplace and the Booth School of Business happened to be very close in proximity. So that wasn't a big deal. But to juggle work and studies, that was a bit of a challenge. During the course of it all, I was doing some other fun activities like traveling around the world, and I would host a lot of visitors at my apartment in Chicago. And my husband, who's now husband, he was also traveling for work, and he would also choose to sort of stay with locals as opposed to staying in hotels.
So was it like
So
an Airbnb or a couch surfing thing,
it was couch surfing.
Wow. Yeah,
Mix of both.
I've used that, while my trip in Japan, so I know that well. Yeah.
You do that? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, poor things.
What
They
did
are
he
just
bring
not
for you,
existing.
by the
Yeah.
way? Like, like the guest is supposed to bring some gift, right? So I'm just curious, yeah.
Are they supposed to? Well, I guess I'm not sure. Well, I never brought gifts for people, but I would do something for them, like cooking an Indian meal or
Wow.
something like that. But you're right. Benjamin did get me flowers.
Wow. So, no,
So he was
that's
actually
how
my first.
impressed you. Yeah.
Yeah, he was my first guest, and then we spoke about Germany. He spoke about his village where I'm currently living,
Mhm.
the very house where he grew up, and all of that. And it was very platonic at the time. There was no intentions of uh,
Getting married or what?
nothing. Yeah, exactly. It was just, I was very scared of him because I hadn't known a German personally before. So he was just in his room, in his space all the time. And I was just hosting just so I could get a nice testimonial
Mhm.
for myself. And then I told him that I wanted to travel to Europe. And he said, whenever you're there, I would do the same for you. I would help you around with the language. And then a few months later, I planned a trip to Europe, just a backpacker's solo trip. And he drove down from Frankfurt, where he lived at the time, to Switzerland to help me out. And that's when it kind of
Wow.
started, I would
No, I
say.
mean, that was a lot of effort, I can imagine. And especially for a
Yeah.
couple, yeah. Mhm.
It was very interesting, and I'm like, yeah. When I checked the map, it sounded like he driven about 10 hours of distance, as you said. It was quite a bit of an effort. So yeah, he had me around in Switzerland, and we kind of hit it off there, and yeah, and our journey in parallel with what I had going on the side with the booth, my job, and trying to change careers from IT to product marketing. This was also going on the side. We got married. He supported me. My husband has supported me a lot.
Mhm.
But there was always a plan to move to Germany at some point in time because of which we can explore in this conversation. By the way of different benefits and by the way of different advantages that it offers over a country like United States, where things can be a little bit challenging for people with no social security,
Mhm.
so there was always a bit of conversation around that. And we eventually took a leap of faith not a leap of faith for him, but for me, while I was trying to get a new job in product marketing. I was also able to luckily find one from Chicago, and I arrived in Berlin. So,
Amazing.
and
Amazing.
yeah.
That's so nice. And this is so interesting because I have seen a lot of Indians, who come to Germany, face, the bureaucratic challenges or the lingual challenges, and then they decide to move to US, where you are paid well. Of course, I mean, I will explore during the conversation what are the advantages, between, each countries. But I have seen a lot of examples of reverse migration, like from Germany to US.
Germany to
And
the
you are
US.
sure, like, you're right that, many people also, they move from US to Germany. But for you as an Indian, and I being Indian, I know that we all have the American dream. Nobody of us have like the German dream, right? It's always the American dream. And then you were at the peak of your career, you know, into Chicago Booth School of Management, very prestigious school. So it would have been, very courageous decision to kind of, as you said, leap of faith to move to Germany,
To Germany.
Yeah, and when you
Exactly.
moved, and then when you made a decision, okay, you moved to Germany, then I wanted to ask you, like, what are the main cultural differences that you kind of you faced initially, and do you regret moving from the US to the Germany? So just elaborate on this, yeah.
Oh, sure. Just to add a little bit of context to that, because I paid a lot into my MBA at Chicago, it costs hundreds and thousands of dollars, right? So
Yeah.
because I paid a lot, the fact that I wanted a job in product marketing superseded everything else, superseded starting a family, superseded immigration, even waiting for a green card. I did not care for anything other than finding a job in product marketing. So if it had to be in Germany, or Timbuktu or Hawaii, wherever, I would have gone.
Okay.
So there was no question that product marketing job as such was high on my priority. As far as cultural differences, right? I mean, it's the usual, right? I would say that when I was coming to Germany, I had thought that because I had had this amazing, experiences of living in these so many different countries and so many different states in the US, being exposed to so much culture, for God's sake, learning Arabic even. I mean, how hard can Germany really be?
That's
You
true.
know?
I mean, you have that, unique background of living in different countries. So perhaps, for you, I mean, you were already adaptable, so to say. But
Right.
still, I think, in context to, because you lived for long in the US, right? And US is
Yeah.
already like
Well,
quite multicultural when compared to Germany,
exactly.
and then you moved back to Germany. This is what I'm like really fascinated by this story. Like, how does a person from, such a prestigious institute decide to kind of move back to Germany? Because I see very rare examples. You said one thing was job, yeah, which makes sense. Other thing was perhaps your husband,
My husband, the dream of being sort of, so while I was in the US, I was always encumbered by this pressure of being just working and not having any sort of side gigs. In Germany, that would have allowed me, and this, I guess, whether or not you're married to a German citizen, you can have multiple side gigs to support yourself, whether you're on a visa or if you're a citizen, it doesn't matter. While in the US, if you're on or if you're, for example, on H-1B, you can do just that. You cannot have any side gigs to learn a new skill set, build a new transferable skill. And I always had this ambition of having a sort of a side business, something like a hobby on the
Mhm.
side where I could have fun and not just focus on job alone. So that was another impetus to have that freedom. Like I really felt European Union would then end up becoming my oyster, and actually that has turned out to be right. In the last 3 years, I've had a side business. I've changed my job, of my own volition. I didn't get fired or anything, but of my own volition, several times. I've worked for a German company, I've worked for a Finnish company, and now I work for an American company. And while doing a lot of extra things like sitting with you on this podcast. So moving to Germany was always on the radar, also because we wanted to start a family. And seeing the experiences of my colleagues with the abysmal maternity leave allowances in the US, it really scared me. Like I had a baby 6 months ago, and I'm currently on Elton site, and I cannot fathom under any circumstance going to work at this time. I cannot, and I have no idea how so many women all around the United States are able to do it. To leave their baby at home and to be able to, I mean, I have great admiration and respect for that, but I just cannot fathom. But in Germany, I have been allowed this 1 year of period just to bond with my baby, just to see and observe his little milestones that he's growing up with. So to have that experience, I also wanted to move to Germany, and of course everybody knows about their employment benefits. You get what you pay for. So benefits was another advantage.
You mean the social benefits, yeah?
The social benefits that are granted by the government. And there's this little thing when I met Ben, and we started to sort of live together as boyfriend and girlfriend. And what I observed was living in the US, because I'd lived for so long, my personality, I am very American in my mindset. I think American, I approach to problems like an American, which has its advantages, but it also has its disadvantages. With the disadvantages being that I'm always type A, right? And like I'm always, worried about something, stressed out about something, because I'm, I have to get something done all the time. I'm always a woman on the mission. Whereas my husband, he always approaches problems in a very relaxed and very calm manner. And moving here, I can see why. Germans in general are very relaxed. I mean, they complain all the time. They have a problem with everything. However, their approach to problems is a lot more relaxed as compared to US. They deliberate more, they think more, but they're not people on any kind of big mission, which I love. And I always wanted to imbibe that quality from my husband. So
what I would like to ask next is that, I've seen many Indians moving from Germany to US, and they will cite different examples. For example, integrating into the American culture is perhaps easier. Maybe language is one factor. Second thing is they always brag about the US salaries, which is, sometimes even almost double the salary that you get in Germany. And of course, they will say that, the American, they just love the American lifestyle. So, perhaps something on those lines, if you can, because you have lived long enough in America and long enough now also in Germany. So if you can highlight those differences, so what are the advantages, say of living in America?
It's a great question. So yes, when I landed in Berlin, the salaries compared to what I was earning in Berlin versus because now I work again for an American company and my salaries are local to San Francisco. So yeah, the difference between that salary, granted that was my first job as a product marketing manager. However, there is no doubt that the salaries are bigger, and that is understandably why one can understand why Americans are so entrepreneurial in the first place. I completely get that. So in terms of advantages of living in America, yes, you get a lot of money. Integration is quote unquote easier. But here's my perspective on it. In order to really comment on any country's, your ability to integrate in any country, or how good a country is, in order for you to really gauge whether a country is suitable to your needs, whether or not you would expect to live there long term, you would have to live there longer than just 2 years or 3 years or even 4 years. I think in order for you to really comment on it, I think you should live there for at least 7 years in a particular country, which means that even I'm not as qualified to say a whole lot about Germany, but I'm still trying. So the advantages of living in the US would be, yes, the salaries, the people in general are nicer. When I arrived in Germany, I felt the burn. You know, I believe that I'm a little bit spoiled from the treatment of how I've been treated by the Americans, because Americans, they say the harshest. I know that Canadians have that reputation of being polite, but Americans are also no less. They will say the harshest of things in a way that, you know, you won't even realize it's actually a criticism. So whereas in Germany, and it's particularly that one generation, the early 60s and early 70s generation, that can be a little bit harsh on you for breaking the rules. Whereas in the US, if you make a mistake, like let me just give you an example, right? So I drive a lot, and when you're driving in a new country, you make mistakes, and I think no matter how skilled a driver you are, you will still make mistakes. So I was driving the other day, and my GPS said that, you know, turn on the right, but that right was a very small street, not narrow but small street, where it was clearly written it was for bikers, but my GPS said, you know, weitermachen, you know, continue. So I was a little bit in two minds about it, but there was nobody there, so I was very confused. So I took the right turn anyway, and I immediately realized that I had made a mistake. That I should not have turned right on that. It was a biker's lane, and I should not have turned right. And I was getting some stares, and that was fine. However, in no time, a woman arrives, and, you know, she kind of knocks on the window of my car, and she asked me to roll down the window. And she's like, basically, I'm translating, and she's like, you know that you're not supposed to drive in this lane, right? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, you know what happens if the police catches you, right? Like, then I'm like, now I'm used to all this criticism and all this, instant feedback. So, and I'm like, yeah, the police might come and they might find me, or might even, in worst case, arrest me or something like that for driving on this street. And then she just stared back and she left. But there's this something like this wouldn't happen in the US, because people are a little bit more understanding of the mistakes that people make, and they can choose to look the other way. But as I said, it's this particular generation that can be really, really punctilious about you making mistakes, as if they have never made a mistake before, and that can be a little bit difficult for people to adjust to. And that's why I tell people who want to move to Germany, yes, you should learn the language in order to converse, in order to talk, in order to express yourself, but also to be able to stand up for yourself. I wanted to say so many things at that time, like, have you never made a mistake? Did you really have to do this? Have you never made a mistake in your life? Could you have considered why I was in the street in the first place? Because my GPS asked me to. I could not. So learn the language, not just to express yourself, but to stand your ground, because in Germany, nobody's going to do that for you. People are not they are very kind, for sure, particularly the younger generation, they are more understanding. But yes, the older generation can be a little bit critical, and so I would say stand up for yourself, and that can be a little bit challenging, particularly for Indians. We are very people pleasing, and if you are all the time you're trying to please people, it can be exasperating, and you'll be like, I want to get out of there. So I would say that. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah, Sneha. So we have all had those "I'm not in Kansas anymore" moments when experiencing a new culture, right? So what's been your biggest fish out of the water experience in Germany so far?
So I'm living the fish out of the water experience pretty much every single day. So in Berlin, we decided to move to my husband's village, actually into the very same house where he grew up. And it's a wonderful environment. It's in the nature, and we have all these different farms and so many different animals around us, like alpacas and horses, for us to see, like our neighbors own those animals and all of that. So we really wanted to be in the nature, in the wild and all of that. But the house that we moved into needed renovation, and this was the very house where my husband grew up. And renovating this house while being pregnant, uh, that was completely, how would I say, and trying to understand the language of the renovation, the whole paraphernalia that encompasses renovation, what is what, what do you call, what is tapeter, what is fliesen. Now I don't think I remember the English words even anymore. Now I know just the German words for them. So yeah, the home renovation that I went through, which lasted almost a year, which was actually a year-long process, that was a complete fish out of the water experience for me. More, yes, because of the language, but more so, so my in-laws, they're very DIY people, and actually DIY is a complete understatement. They had regular jobs in HR, and they were engineers and all of that, but they can also put together a whole damn house. Okay, so to watch 60 something people doing while I'm pregnant, just sitting and lazing around in the house, my father-in-law like set up the floor, like renovate the floor, renovate the kitchen for us, set up the heating, set up new equipment and all of that for us. That was, whereas in India, you what do parents do after 60s? They
You
just,
cannot imagine that in India. So
you cannot imagine that, and that and I was visibly uncomfortable watching my in-laws go through that. They were not going through that, they were enjoying doing it for their son and their daughter-in-law. And when they saw me visibly very, very uncomfortable and just babbling nonsense, they're like, are you okay? And I said, yes, I'm okay, but I'm not used to this. And they explained to me that this is normal. We like to be part of our son and our daughter's lives, and this is something that we are skilled at. So why pay for labor when we can do it ourselves? And it took a bit of adjusting to watch my in-laws do all this work, but eventually I came to understand that they are very, very hands-on, very, very skilled people. So that was a fish out of the water experience. And yeah, so yeah.
wow, no, that's a great example, Sneha. And so a follow-up question. So what are the things about the German culture that you admire?
Yeah, plenty. They are just as tight-knit as Indians are in terms of family, probably even more so. As I said, you cannot imagine a German father, excuse me, an Indian father being, laying out the floor for their son. It's just
No, but
unfathomable, right?
that's a different thing. Our fathers have different ways of showing. It's just not part of the culture because I think the
Really?
labor is quite cheap in India, right? So,
Able
yeah. So
point.
that's yeah. But I mean, from emotional point of view, I think Indians have quite an family bonding. So I mean, like Germans.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
it's completely. I would say that they are almost identical. There might be differences in their ways, and I see a lot of marriages also happening between Indians and Germans. Perhaps because of similar values.
Mhm.
So I guess that could be that. But the other thing that I like is obviously the sense of organization that I have learned, particularly from my in-laws. They are highly organized people, and there's just wealth of information that they have to share with regards to not just complex matters. Sure, I mean, how to set up a house is very complex, but just how you lay out a table, how do you set up a dining table, how do you actually clean the calc, they call the calcium deposits
Yeah.
off of the armature. Now I'm forgetting the English words
No,
for it,
no,
but what
but
I
yeah, go on. But I
the
understand.
tap.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
How do you clean from the wash basin, the sink? How do you clean it? With what materials and all of that? So I've learned a lot, and there are methods for doing this. Whereas in the US, I would just I'm sure that there are people who are aware of how to clean things and how to manage and organize things. But in general, people are just doing what they feel like and what is available to them. Here, you
So
go by a certain method. So I like
I,
that about it.
I can totally relate. So in Germany,
Yeah.
people have a set of protocols for everything, you know. That jugaad thing, you know, the element of jugaad that is in India, like isse bhi kar sakte hain, usse bhi, that is missing here. It's like aise hi hota hai. And you know that attention to find like details, you know, is so very important here. As you said, like, you know, say arranging a dining table, for example, how to lay out a table and stuff. I also kind of admire that, you know. And the
Amazing.
second thing you said, like organization, I think punctuality, perhaps you would have noted that too, you know, like the sense of.
And I think it's a little bit overrated in my experience. I don't find them particularly punctual.
That's
I
a
arrive
great
on
thing.
time, but the doctors are always late. I always,
Wow.
end
That's
up meeting the doctor 30 minutes late. So I think that is
that is overrated
that's
also now
overrated.
for Deutsche Bahn. You know, after, I mean, when I was new to Germany, you know, the Deutsche Bahn was quite punctual. I mean, I could trust, you know, them like a watch, like the Deutsche Bahn. But now you cannot, I mean, the punctuality, as you said, has become overrated now, perhaps because of, you know,
Perhaps it could just be my.
delays. But going forward, you know, how do you see the healthcare system in, say, in US versus Dubai versus Germany? What do you think is the better healthcare system?
Well, I'm a mother, and I recently became a mother not too long ago. So yeah, I have only, words of appreciation for the German healthcare system. Yes, it's not perfect as it is not in any other country. I just like to give a small example. There was this wart on my hand that I'd had removed in the US. And I had all kinds of fancy insurances and all of that. And it was a tiny little wart that was growing on my skin. And I ended up paying like, this is after the insurance kicked in. I ended up paying $1,500 just to have
Yes.
the wart exactly in the US removed. And that wart, because they had not removed the surrounding skin, it tends to grow back if you're not careful. If you need to remove the surrounding skin, I mean, probably. So in order for it to not grow back again, but it did. So I came to Berlin, where I had my like within a month. I thought, I might as well get this surgery, and they made a bigger cut, and the surgery was done. And the fact that I did not have to shell a dime, it was mind-boggling at the time, because I was so used to, okay, you want to go for an annual checkup, yeah, $200 please. So yeah, that was amazing. And here, perhaps because I'm living in the village, so in Berlin, I would say yes, the healthcare system is a little bit overburdened with patients. There's so many people. But in this part of the world, when I arrived here, I have met with such personal assistance from the doctors, especially during my pregnancy. They have been, I have shown up for without an appointment at an eye doctor, because I was seeing floaters and everything. And I said, because I was so scared, at one point in Berlin, I'd shown up without an appointment. I was kicked out of the praxis. But here they said, you're not going. You're staying, and you're going to have your eyes checked, because this is pregnancy. So I was very surprised. I was very scared that, they might yell at me, but they said, no, you're staying. Throughout my pregnancy, the way that they were organized, the sense of German organization was really visible, was really apparent during my pregnancy. I was given a Mutter Pass, which is the mother's passport. And that passport, that book, that diary, whatever you want to call it, entailed each one of my appointments that I'd ever had with the doctors, which were actually planned way in advance.
Wow.
Up till the end of my pregnancy. And they had all of my data, my weight, my baby's condition, how he was, the position, all of that in a neatly
Documented.
organized chart, and all the vaccinations that I'd had, all the tests that I'd made. So the doctor, any doctor, if I were to go to some other doctor, which was not my own OBGYN, if they were to look at my Mutter Pass and see, they would be able to tell everything about my condition. It was so amazing. And again, to not pay for any of that being able to take care, the insurance being able to take care of that and all of that in the Hintergrund, that was just so amazing. I had the best pregnancy ever, and yeah, and I had thought about this while living in the US, and that came out to be true. Yeah.
No, no, that is a great example. And a follow-up question, because I think this podcast will also help other people, who are going through pregnancies. So what is the procedure that one has to follow? I mean, you had, of course, help from your in-laws, and your husband is German, so you know the rules better than other people, right? So what would be your advice to, new moms, or like, any immigrant who is like undergoing pregnancy? What are the steps that they should take in order to have a
Okay.
successful pregnancy journey?
As a new mom, I'm very happy to share some of my learnings. In the village, I have received a lot of personalized sort of service and a care from the doctors, and I realized that it may not be, especially especially to Indians who move into bigger cities like Berlin and Munich, where the care may not be as personalized, and all the doctors are over encumbered and buried in the load of work. So I would say number one thing would be to get support from the women who have already been pregnant in Germany before you. It can be via Facebook group, or any Indians in your city, the group of those, and they can really refer you to the right doctors, to the right Hebamma, to which I will come, the point, I will arrive at this point very soon. The second one is when you have found a doctor, ask them the right questions and how the care will proceed. Normally, the doctor should be able to answer all of your questions, and if something doesn't look right, you can always go to another doctor. You don't have to, just because you found one doctor doesn't mean that you won't be able to find another. So keep your options open, find as many doctors as possible, and then sort of compare. And vitamin B here really, as in networking here, really has a role to play. So the more recommendations you get for a certain doctor, the better. When you get your Mutter Pass is the document that you will receive in the 6th week or 7th week of your pregnancy, when you hear the baby's heartbeat. This Mutter Pass will be your guide through the pregnancy. It will have all the information that another doctor who is not your OBGYN will need to know in case of an emergency. So it will have your baby's vitals, your statistics, over how they have progressed over the course of months and weeks, ultrasound information, everything that a doctor knows. And while you may not be familiar with German health terms, protein is, for example, Eiweiß and all, Schwangerschaft and all those German terms, try to learn some of those words, try to read the Mutter Pass and go through your Mutter Pass and really learn all these different terms. So you're able to, on the day of the delivery, you're able to express yourself. What is the word for contractions? And what is the word for, I don't know, blood pressure, and so on. So learn those basic German words so you can explain what's going on. Then in the Mutter Pass, you will have all these different meetings outlined way in advance. They will be in the planned way in advance. Attend all those meetings, and in case you need to reschedule, of course you can. But they will be week by week, and you have to make sure that all of those meetings are attended. Your sugar test will be done in, I don't know, 28th week or something like that. I guess it will be mentioned by your doctor. So make sure you attend all of them around the 20th week mark. And this is something I did as well, or I would say that it came from the recommendation of my OBGYN. She really wanted that I build connections at the hospital where I was going to give birth. So the hospital where I gave birth was in Paderborn, Frauenklinik, and what she did was she referred me to a detailed, it was not required, my baby was fine, but she kind of she said, she wrote something like, oh, Sneha has angst, Sneha is a little bit scared, and she wants a detailed ultrasound of her baby. So she referred me to the hospital directly where I was planning to give birth. So what I did was I went for the detailed ultrasound. I got to know the doctor who eventually delivered my son. Actually, the Hebamas did, but she was kind of overseeing the whole process. So it was nice. So try to talk to your doctor about it and see if they can do something like this. So there are no surprises. The environment, because I understand if you don't speak the language, if you're not familiar with the German Krankenhaus per se, where you're going to give birth, it can be a little bit intimidating. Your doctor will also tell you, she will refer you to certain Hebamas. Again, you don't have to decide on one immediate, like the first one you speak to. You can speak to several. Hebamas are midwives. To those who don't know, I mean, I didn't know what a Hebama was. So so what they do is basically after the birth of your baby, even before, if you have any questions, they are always reachable over WhatsApp, or they can come home, check your blood pressure, check if you're doing okay, check the position of the baby, whether he's breech or, in the cephalic position, whatever. But after the baby is born, their role becomes even more important, tracking their growth, monitoring their progress, their height, and whether they have a Gelbsucht, which is jaundice. So all of that. And while at the same time also taking care of you postpartum, your breast, any help that you need with breastfeeding, lactation, if you're experiencing swelling in your body, whether your blood pressure is normal after birth, and all of that. So make sure you have the right Hebama whom you're able to connect with, and who has at least a few decades of experience, so that they will be able to guide you with any problem pertaining to your body post pregnancy. The other recommendation would be to have your, I guess I've already said that, but have your motor pass on you at all times, wherever you go, no matter what you do. The other thing is that I've heard a lot in India, particularly, that the doctors prescribe C-section without having a legitimate grounds to do so. Here, that is not the case. So I guess that is a good news for many women, unless you want a C-section, an elective C-section. For me, initially, I was like, no, regardless, I'm going for a C-section. I can't tolerate the pain. But they would laugh at me. They would be like, why? The doctors, I mean, they would be like, why do you want to do that? It's just a few minutes of pain and then you're done with it. But eventually, I came to understand that they were right, and I did deliver normally. Nothing is normal. I mean, vaginally.
But that's the best way, like natural way, so to say.
Everything is normal. That's what I meant. So yeah, it would be really dependent on you and the doctor and the condition of the baby. It won't be without any just out of the thin air. They're making some stuff up that they have. I mean, I had fibroids. Fibroids are small growths. They are harmless growths, and it could have been that I would have had to deliver via C-section, but the doctor said, no need. The baby is perfect. There's absolutely no need to do so, which I appreciated a lot. So talk to your doctor all the times. Ask all the questions that you need. They will have all the answers for you. So those were my advice.
No, that's such a precious information, Sneha. Really appreciate it. So now I think, I'll kind of switch gears a bit, and I would like to ask you a different question, a question regarding maintaining your roots, So of course, like, when you are Indian, or when you are expat for that matter, you of course adapt to the culture that you are living in, but you also have your other culture, right? Like where you are from. Like if you are from India, you also have that Indian cultural things like Durga Puja or other, cultural activities. So how do you kind of maintain that, or how do you maintain a sense of connection to your Indian roots? Are there any cultural practices that you continue to observe and stuff like that? Maybe you can highlight.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've had more cultural, events. I've hosted more cultural events / functions / parties in my house. here in Fölsen, in a very remote village, very, very German village where I'm the only brown person for miles, than I ever did in even in US or even in Dubai or India. Believe
Wow,
me.
that's good to hear, yeah.
With the recent one being the Annaprashan, which is the introduction to grains ceremony for my son.
Mhm.
And I had invited the whole of village. Some of them understood I obviously explained what it was about, but they had a blast during that ceremony. And my brother, who's in India, he was asking me, like, how did you even manage to find a pandit? So he did all the ritual, and I and Ben my husband Ben are sitting with each other, and our son is in our lap, and we're giving him the first meal prepared by the pandit himself. And it was one of the most surreal events. Like when we moved to this house, I also did a Grah Pravesh with the same Pandit. So
Wow.
I have done more events here than I did in any other in any other country that I've lived in. So I try to do that. The other thing is that the different countries that I've lived in, not just India, but I also feel attached to US. I also feel attached to Dubai. What I do is food is the most important connection, to any land.
Culture. Yeah.
Spoken
Mhm.
German, sorry. Food is the connection to a country. So I try to eat sometimes, American food, American burger, and I'll go to an American joint in Berlin, or of course, I eat Indian all the time, and I travel to make sure that I keep myself sane, and I meet people across various cultures, including my own. So yeah, that's how I'm sort of yeah.
Amazing. On a side note, how's Ben, does Ben love Indian food, or how's he with Indian
Yeah,
food?
yeah, yeah. And my in-laws, who had never even tasted Indian food, because everybody has a little bit of preconceived, a wrong notion about Indian food, of it being shaf, which
Yeah.
is spicy, which is false. I mean,
Yeah.
it has a lot of flavor, but spicy, which is not acceptable to the palate. That is not the case with Indian food, unless you
Yeah,
really
they
put in
think that,
a ton of chili powder.
they think, yeah,
Yeah,
you're so right. You're so right, Sneha. I'm
pet
just
peeve
kind
of
of,
mine.
no,
It's a pet
because,
peeve of mine. Yeah.
it's not the spices that they mind only the chili thing, and if you reduce the chili, they are okay with the spices, this is my feeling.
This is my understanding as well. But when somebody has not eaten Indian food, and they'll go like, "It's not sharp, right? It's not sharp." I'm like, "No, it's not sharp. It's just for us, spicy doesn't mean just being putting a ton of chili powder. For us, spicy means bringing in together the flavors, the different flavors from the different spices, garam masala and dhania powder and all of that. So yeah.
So, what are some of the challenges you face as an Indian living in Germany, and how do you overcome them?
Challenges, yeah. As I said, stemming from the language that I've already spoken about, which I also tell other people. Make sure that you're always uh, you, you have you should learn language for being able to communicate, but also to stand up for yourself, because Germans are very, very critical and very, very quickly. And this is their culture. I hold no grudge against them, but this is just how they are. So yes, I would say linguistic barriers are obvious. The second one is actually, particularly as a homeowner, I have to punctiliously sort trash, from bio to yellow, the metal stuff,
The plastic
right? The
and,
recycle,
yeah,
or
the paper, yeah.
the recycle, then the paper, then there's another one that I'm blocking out on. But all these different,
Yeah.
so sometimes you'll see me, tearing off paper from a packet, from a yellow mull, because it should be going to the yellow mull. Mull means trash, sorry.
Yeah,
So my
yeah.
English is always littered
No,
with,
no,
which is
but
another.
I totally understand that. So this segregation at source,
Mm.
of the mul is very
Yeah.
important.
One another thing, which I actually have a great admiration for, and it also is related to my previous point, their concern for the environment. And this is completely new to me. And this is not a challenge. So it's a pleasant challenge to have. We have just installed solar panels in our house, which means we are making our own electricity.
Wow.
On sunny days. And, if you're running the dishwasher, it is all produced when we're running the dishwasher or the washing machine and all of that. So it's the electricity is coming from those solar panels. So on a sunny day, we make a ton of electricity. And I was talking to my husband about that the electricity that is left unused is actually donated to the village, to the neighbors. Which also takes a little bit of getting used to. The German concern for the environment is pretty strong. So when you come here, don't just litter around. Yes, you cannot litter in US as well, or Dubai as well, but I'm saying that don't just learn about the practices of good garbage disposal, learn about how they save electricity. You cannot just leave lights and fans and all of that turned on. So that was a bit of a learning curve as well for me, because in US you are really, really, really spoiled. I
No,
definitely
no,
was.
and I totally relate to you because, I mean, most of my US friends, or even when I go to US, I always see that, like they always have like, you don't have air condition, because
Oh,
klima
yeah.
suits, the climate protection is such a big
Yeah.
thing in Germany that,
Yeah.
you can comment about the air conditioners.
Yeah. Don't have an AC, but luckily I have a husband who gets hot very, very fast, and he needs AC at all the time. So my in-laws are not too happy about us installing AC in our house, because in this kind of environment where it's so open and there's so much fresh air, and there are different ways to let fresh air and let cool
Mhm.
air in
Mhm.
via your keller, which is the basement, I guess. So you let the cool air come in from the basement, and it goes all the way up into the individual rooms. So yeah, this is how particular they are. They don't have fans. It's a little bit strange for them to have fans and Klimaanlage or air condition in their house. That also took a bit of getting used to, but I didn't have a problem with that. I mean, I come from Delhi and Dubai. Yeah, this is pleasant weather for me, so it's
Wow.
fine.
Amazing, amazing. And the next question is about, seeing the Indian community growing. I'm sure like you would have noticed that there's a more influx of Indians now, because Germany has quite opened up and there's a lot of, also need of, say, skilled labor in Germany, so you will see a lot of IT employees coming in Germany. So how do you see the Indian community in Germany evolving in future? What are your comments on that?
Okay, so in this conversation, you've obviously mentioned that there's a lot of migration from Germany to US that's happening. However, personally, I have experienced more Indians moving from the US, like myself actually, moving from the US to here, and two of them actually being US citizens. And both of them working in IT. So I, particularly after the Trump administration, where things became a little bit volatile, a little bit more abrasive in the US, I saw a lot of migration happening the other way. And Germany is opening up its borders for skilled labor, as you correctly said. And there is this sort of preconceived notion that in Germany, in order to be able to find a job, you need to know German. And this myth is, sort of being put to rest every day with each new job opening up that requires you to have German fluency. There is actually a job that does not. So with cities like Berlin being as multicultural as they are, particularly imbibing the values of, Silicon Valley being all peppy and English, and, having an English speaking culture in their offices. So I definitely see a lot of plenty of influx of not just Indians but immigrants
Yes, immigrants,
in
yeah. Mhm.
general. Definitely, yeah. Did I
Wow.
answer the question?
No, no, definitely, definitely. So you predict a future there where there will be much more, say, immigration in Germany, right? Like,
Absolutely. I see that every day. I have I have friends who have moved here from the US, from India, from Malaysia, even to Germany. As I said, Germany is becoming a lot more open.
And one thing that perhaps, perhaps you can comment on that, because I'm not very sure about it, but somebody was telling that there's already a proposal in the parliament to make, say, English as a second language, second official language, just to kind of ease the migration process. Do you have any idea about that?
I do not have much information about that, but that would just blow up the job in a good way, blow up the job market here. Because another thing is that it's not very difficult to find a job in Germany, even if you are in some other country. I've seen people move here with already job offers in the hand. So it really, the HRs in institute, all these organizations are being told to look, particularly after the wave of Corona, to really look outside and bring more people in. And the visa process is so easy. It's very easy for those who are residing internationally, regardless of their expertise in German, to come over to Germany and find a job. So and really, if English becomes the dominant language, the main language, which I guess it unofficially already is, pretty much. I live in a village, and I was surprised to learn that so many people, I mean, they speak English fluently. They just choose not to because they don't get an opportunity to. And I kind of also feel bad for making them speak in English or whatever. So I'm always speaking in German with them. So yeah, you'd be surprised how many Germans, even living in remote areas, speak English. So I would say that would really blow up the market. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is a very interesting question, because I'm sure like you would have your highs and lows in Germany, and most of the expats, especially Indians, they can feel quite homesick and lonely at times. So what advice you would have for them, for those Indians who feel like quite lonely in Germany?
Living in Germany can really teach you a thing or two about your own strength and your own resilience. Your own ability to adapt to a culture that you've never lived in before. Sometimes things will be very hard. I'm not denying that. Even with a German family, even with a German husband, and after living 4 years, I encounter problems on a day-to-day basis. They are not going to go away until I'm really, really thoroughly integrated into the German culture. But I know for a fact that the onus is on me as a foreigner to make that extra effort, to really go the extra mile to integrate. When somebody, for example, when there is a German who's trying to speak in English to me, I make an effort to speak in German with them. So I'm always making that extra effort to really integrate into the German culture. Yes, it helps to have your own Indian community around, but how can you call yourself, if that is your plan, to live here permanently? How can you say that you're a German if you're not, acclimatized to the natives, the native population? If you've not learned their culture as well. So it's really important that you if you do that, to learn about them, to learn about the history. The second thing is, and this happened when I moved to Germany. In the US, as I said, I was very entrepreneurial, very enterprising. I would always, like, in the mornings I had a day job, in the evenings I was studying for MBA. When I had nothing to do, I was looking for a job, like how I would transition my career from IT to product. I always had something to do, or I was consulting, volunteering, and all of that. When I came here, I realized that, with all these things out of my diary, MBA out of my diary, having something to look forward to, like giving job interviews out of my diary, what was I going to do? And that is why I started the hustle to, the side hustle to, educate people on how to find jobs in Germany, how to write resume, LinkedIn, networking in Germany, and all of that. So that really helped me get engaged with the international community here. So don't just work, also engage with your own community by the way of your hobbies. Meetup groups are really helpful.
Fantastic.
Facebook meetup groups. I also attended, so I write sometimes. So so I would attend the Shut Up and Write group in Berlin. Then they became virtual. So I now write sort of virtually on computer, but I'm always meeting new people all the time. So I'm always, I'm always exposed to new people at all times. And that keeps my brain sort of busy. But I completely recognize that it can be challenged. It can be a little bit challenging, but really the onus is on you to make that extra effort. Someone else is not going to do that for you, whether it's Germany or US or India.
Absolutely, Sneha. And to kind of, to add to what you just said, I think I and Sneha got in touch also through Facebook, So being open, being open is also very important, that, to make new friends, to be very open about, meetups and other virtual platforms that you mentioned, Sneha, like, and through the hobbies that you rightly mentioned, other things I can comment on is that, don't wait for people to approach you, because many people think that, somebody will approach me, rather than have that, openness. Because once you approach, I think, people, it's more likely that people will respond to you, so don't assume things, but just try to approach people, and you will not find yourself lonely.
Another thing is that, as I said, Germans can be a little bit, I don't want to say
reserved, yeah. That's
reserved, direct. But when they know you and know your intentions and know that you're a good person and somebody who they can connect to, they can be the best of friends. And in this village alone, I have made some very good friends without, doing too much. All I did was show up with Indian food and they seem to like me.
Yeah.
So you don't have to sometimes do too much. It can be
Absolutely.
just and they will like you,
Absolutely.
So.
And I mean, just to you're telling about this, old Germans and stuff like that. But I would just kind of say, just to add to your point, one of my best friend is actually a 57-year-old German guy. He visits me regularly. We have a, dinner together also on Sunday, like tomorrow he's coming, and we have best of conversation. So, and he said that, many immigrants feel that they are lonely in this country, but the reality is that even Germans are lonely, because the culture is so self-reliant. They've always learned to kind of not rely on anybody else, but to be reliant on themselves, that they tend to kind of grow apart, because they don't like to be disturbed. They have their privacy concerns and stuff like that. So don't feel that, that they are just behaving or they are trying to be reserved with immigrants. No, among themselves also they can be quite reserved. So you have to understand this.
Oh, exactly. They're not being personal. They're not, to you, or they're not being racist at all times. They're just the way they are. That's how they are.
Exactly. So I mean, this, when you approach things from this frame of mind, I think you're more kind to people and more positive. Yeah.
I mean, if it were some other person instead of you, they would treat them the same way. So yeah, exactly. So that is why it's important for you to speak your mind, because they expect you to speak your mind. Everybody here speaks their mind, which for me also is a challenge, because the mindset is to be people pleasing and being diplomatic.
Yeah, exactly.
So speak your mind, and it will really help.
Exactly. And now the most, I think, interesting section. What are some of the things that you love doing in Germany, and what are some of your favorite places to visit that you can recommend to our audience?
So what are the favorite things that I like to do? Because I live in nature. So I live next to a river called Nethe. People can Google Nethe, Nethe in English. I like to go for walks with my son, and the maternity leave has really allowed me to do that, to go for, to really watch him grow in the middle of all nature. My neighbors have a lot of animals, and we see them as well at all times. Other thing would be to, I've recently learned a lot about house management, which I spoke about earlier. So I do a lot of house organization and cleanup and all of that all the time. So I do that. I also attend virtual meetup groups, or even in the in-person meetup groups, sometimes with Indians, sometimes just people with similar hobbies as mine. I do that as well. I keep myself busy, and life just gets more busy with when you have a child. In terms of where to visit, come to my village in full. I'll be happy to host you. We host. Oh yeah, another thing is we like to host visitors. So I have a lot of friends all around the world, and whenever they're coming to Germany, they crash at my place. We have plenty of place here, so yeah, that is another one of my hobbies. We absolutely love hosting people. So show up in Fölsen, and we can catch up for a coffee or yeah, whatever. So yeah. Another good place to visit would be, the regular Berlin, Munich, all of that,
Any hidden
Regensburg.
gems? Because there are so many hidden gems in Germany, Sneha. So maybe you have visited some place that nobody knows of. You can tell. Nothing like that? You should
No.
explore much. I should give you some tips. Yeah,
Yeah,
I will
actually, I
offer it.
need
Yeah.
more tips in those regards,
Yeah, I think you
because
have been quite busy,
uh,
with this job thing, and now becoming a mother is itself like a journey in itself. It's
very tasking. It's very, very
yeah,
tasking.
very.
Yeah. So yeah, I prefer right now for me, my own environment is a retreat for me because it's just so calm and peaceful. So yeah, travel has taken a bit of a backseat, but I do travel internationally if I can, and enjoy the experiences of travel when I can.
Amazing, Sneha. It has been such a pleasure speaking to you. I think, the audience will really enjoy our conversation. I hope so.
Thank
And yeah,
you.
to the audience, yeah, subscribe us and let us know your feedback. And I'll try to come up with more such fascinating story of Indians living in Germany. Till then, bye bye. Bye, Sneha.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.